Parents of Reddit, what is the most embarrassing thing your toddler said out loud in public? I have a story about my sister. This happened back in the 70s and she was about 3 years old. My mom tells this story all the time. She and my mom were in a very long line for the restroom. There was a lady a few people in front of them who was over 300 pounds. My sister yells, "Mom, isn't that the fattest lady you've ever seen?" Other people in line were doing their best not to laugh and my mom is horribly embarrassed, and then my sister looks at her and asks, "Isn't she the fattest lady you've ever seen?" My mom had enough and took my sister out of the line and walked away. When I was little, under 5, my dad would jokingly ask if I wanted a cold beer. I would always respond with no, until one day when we were in the grocery store, he asked if I wanted anything, to which I replied, "A cold beer," while we were standing in line. I was with a group of friends and was asked if I drink. I said I don't really, and my daughter said, "But Mom, you drink all the time." She had no idea the difference between drinking alcohol and drinking everything else. My mom always drank a can of Mountain Dew in the mornings when she dropped me off for school. I told all of her friends that she loves to drink and drive, and that she was very good at it. My friend's kid once asked his mom's female friend where her boobs were. The friend had much smaller breasts than his mom. That was certainly awkward for everyone present. My son came home from kindergarten with his backpack full of canned food. When pressed about the issue, he confidently stated that he had told the teacher he was hungry and we didn't have any food at home. They had sent him home with the donations for those in need. We got him to return the food the next day. It's a funny story we tell now, but talk about embarrassed. Me and my 3Y.0 were at my mom's house, and to get her to leave I told her, "Come on, we have to go home and take a shower." To make her laugh I said we need a shower because our bums are stinky. Later when we got home in a full elevator, my daughter turns to me and says, "Mom, you need to shower because your bum is stinky." I was mortified. "Are those your boobas, Mom?" Loudly, at a church nativity play. Edit, for all asking, yes, he was right. The question was accompanied by a vigorous patting motion on my chest. My child isn't old enough to talk yet, but when I was little and we were on holiday, my dad used to get me to say I was younger than I was so we could get into theme parks cheaper. When we were on our way back, the gentleman at passport control asked me how old I was and I turned to my dad and said, "How old am I today, Daddy?" My sister was over 18 at this point, but the plan was to say she was 16 so our hotel room would be cheaper. At the front desk she said, "Wait, didn't I just turn 19? Front desk lady didn't care and marked her as a child, saving me like $80. When my cousin was about to, she still occasionally took baths with her mom, my aunt. One night we're at their house for dinner. Out of nowhere, she blurts out at my uncle, "Daddy, you got hair on your pee-pee too." And that was the first and only time in my life I nearly required the Heimlich maneuver. After hearing the phrase in a movie, my little one yelled, "Put me down, you idiot," in church. Carrying my daughter back from the bathroom through a crowded hits at brunch spot while she shouted, "He farted," at every single table. In case there was any confusion, she was also pointing at my face. I was in Target with my 4-year-old boy twins. One has a nervous habit of grabbing his parts. I quietly said to him, "Let go. Hands off, dude," and he yells at the top of his lungs, "But mama, my penis won't go down." I don't think I've ever left Target so fast. At a fairly nice restaurant, my brother was teasing my daughter, and my daughter screamed at him to stop and threatened to call him the N-word. The N-word was nipple. At the grocery store, my daughter, who was 2 at the time, and I were about to pass an African American lady in an aisle. At this point, she had never seen anyone with a darker skin color such as hers. She's about 2 feet from us. So, he sees her, turns to me and yells, while pointing, "Look, Mom, it's a chocolate lady." I froze for a second, said, "Yes honey, isn't she beautiful?" She yells yes, and I practically ran away down the aisle. That poor lady was such a good sport. Edit, bonus. We met a man with a hook for a hand and she sprinted up to him to ask him if he was Captain Hook. Facepalm. Luckily, he said yes and pretended to run after her. My son was 2 and thought every black man was his dad. He was away for the military a while, so when we were at Boston Market he called another random stranger daddy and ran to him and hugged him. The guy actually picked him up and said, "I'm not your dad but hey buddy." I was mortified but couldn't stop laughing. What a dad bro. That is so sweet. When he was being humped by a puppy and me yelling at the puppy to stop. Don't yell at him. He loves me. I guess he's not wrong. Disclaimer, this was not my toddler, but a toddler said this to me while I was waiting in the grocery line. I have a vagina and new party shoes. Really, what else do you need? This was me at age 24. One of the funniest things was when my sister's son was learning vagina and penis. He would spend a few minutes a day just saying Aunt K, no penis, Uncle J penis. Family events were fun. He would point to someone and say has penis, and if it was a woman he would shake his head, give a look like that's rough buddy, and say no penis. Not really embarrassing, but my son once announced to daycare that I had died. It was a severe shock to them when I picked him up. Now my niece once announced at a family dinner that she wanted to fuck. Loudly, we all turned and looked at this little 3-year-old, and her mother said she'd work on speech therapy with her as she handed her daughter a fork. Edit, as it slowly comes back to me. I think he cried too. Just to underscore the point, it's been almost 13 years, so the memory is hazy. The staff were very distraught. In a public restroom, I had my toddler with me in the stall, where she loudly exclaimed, "Wow, that's a really big poop. Good job mommy." Edit, oh geez, is my highest rated comment going to be about my big poop? 4-year-old son was misbehaving in a store, and I told him if he didn't control himself we were going to leave. He escalated, and I picked him up and carried him through the entire store. He was surprisingly putting up little fight. As we passed the checkout lanes he loudly says, "Hey mister, put me down." I didn't hesitate, didn't make eye contact with anyone, just turned beet red and kept marching out the door. Clever boy. During a private Remembrance Day, Armistice Day, ceremony with veterans, my 3-year-old soiled her diaper. I changed her in a back room, and when we came out, it was the moment of silence. She slammed the door and yelled to all the vets, "I just had a big poo, and it had peanuts in it." My youngest sibling is 10 plus years my junior, so I grew up with him embarrassing me in public. The worst was around Christmas one year when we went to Walmart after going to a church service. The service was about the virgin birth and how no other virgin had ever had a baby before. My brother was probably about 4 to 5 at the time, so while he didn't know exactly what made someone a virgin, that service taught him virgins couldn't have babies. Anyway, we are in the checkout line and behind us is a woman who is obviously pregnant. My brother points to her and says very loudly, "Look, that lady isn't a virgin. I mean, facts." At the grocery store with my boys, 2 and 3, suddenly, without any context, the 3-year-old broke his silence to scream at the cashier, "Mama's wiener is missing. Silver. Thank you kind stranger. Did you ever find it?" Later that night, I was in Costco and my son, who was about 5 at the time, ran up to me, grabbed my hand and started pulling me towards the next aisle. Dad, look, real ninjas, whilst pointing at 2 women in full burqas. When I had a mohawk, a little boy once pointed to me and said dinosaur. That was the best compliment I've ever received. Not me but my midwife, pregnant with second child. 3-year-old daughter asks why mommy's belly is so big. She's told there's a baby in there. She turns to daddy and asks, "Do you have a baby in there too?" Dad replies gently, "No, I'm just fat." A few days later in the checkout line and there's a very large lady behind them in the line. The little girl asks the lady, "Do you have a baby in your tummy like my mummy?" The lady is kind and just says no she doesn't, to which the girl responds, "Oh, just fat then." So my younger brother was 5 to 6 years old. My dad was coaching my basketball team, was in 7th grade, and my brother came along to hang out at the practice. Now my brother has Asperger's, so of course at that age social awareness is non-existent. There are a few black kids on the team and my brother was learning about Martin Luther King Jr. as it was around the time of the holiday, so his brain is processing. During the practice my brother is standing under the basket as we're doing layup lines. All of a sudden as one of the black kids goes past him my brother goes, "Are you an African American?" And my friend chuckles and goes up, "Yeah," and my brother with a completely dead serious face and tone just goes, "I knew it." Whole team was rolling on the floor laughing. My wife had my 3-year-old at the park one day. She decided to pick up some litter to make the park look nicer, so she was throwing away pop bottles, chip bags etc, and he wanted to help. He stoops to pick up some cigarette butts and my wife says leave those to mommy. She wasn't going to pick them up but didn't want him to touch them either. A few minutes later he has gone to play. He tells another mom, I'm finding cigarettes for mommy. My wife was so embarrassed and said she got the dirtiest looks from nearby parents who heard this. You have been visited by the smart studying doggo. You'll be blessed with good grades only if you subscribe to Comment Awards and like the video. PG! On top, food chain, won't stop, new game, hot box that blue haze, one lock, 2 chains, no bras, 2 babes, mic drop, new stage, lights in my rear view, 5 cops, food race, faster than a Tesla, they say I'm exhausted.